Welcome to a very special Hartley football game day. I'm Bob McElligott, and I'll tell you why it's very special this week. Well, you already know. Because for the first time in Ohio high school football history, two teams are going to get together for a third matchup of the season when the Hartley Hawks take on the Stallions of St. Francis DeSales. And what a matchup this should be for a regional championship. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Right now, I want to tell you about Huda and Price Orthodontics. You know, when you go to get yourself taken care of at the doctor, you want to feel like you're getting taken care of. You want to feel like there is a personal touch, a personal relationship. And I'll tell you this right now. When you go to Huda and Price, you're going to feel that way from the very first moment that you walk through the door. I can tell you from personal experience. I have been a patient there. I know how they are, how they treat their patients, what they do for people to, first of all, they keep you comfortable, right? Because sometimes you go into these situations and you don't know exactly what you're going into. They help you to explain everything, to make you feel good about the process, and then they do a great job with the process itself. If you want to find out the services that they provide, you can do that by going to their website at lovethatsmile.net. While you're there, go ahead and schedule a consultation, and Dr. Huda and or Dr. Price will be happy to welcome you in, take a look at you, and see how they can help you. Huda and Price Orthodontics. Find them on the web at lovethatsmile.net. So the third meeting of the year between the Hawks and the Stallions, and what a season series it was. The two teams played two times during the regular season. Back on September 11th, the Hawks went over to DeSales, and they lost by the score of 24-21. It was Jonathan Thompson with a late fourth quarter touchdown run that made the difference in that game. Then just a couple of weeks later, in that first week of October, it was DeSales coming to Hartley. That game finished 16-14, and there was actually a blocked field goal in that game by DeSales. Had Ryan Hawk been able to get that one over the line, maybe the Hawks get the 3 points that they were short in that game. But it didn't happen, and so DeSales won the season series 2-0. They won the CCL championship with that second win, but there's a bigger championship on the line here this week, because the winner of this game wins the region and advances to the state semifinals. Well, the Hawks get here after just grinding out a victory last week. They beat Sheridan 10-6. DeSales, by the way, got here with a big win over Jonathan Alder. They scored 31 points in that win. But for the Hawks last week was old-fashioned smash-mouth football. Yeah, they could have had more points, but they got stopped at the 2-yard line. But it didn't matter to them because they just kept on fighting, and they ran the time off the clock, and they got that win against Sheridan. Now it's on to face DeSales. And now I'd like to bring in the head coach of the Hartley Hawks to talk about last week and, more importantly, about what he expects to see this week. That's Brad Burchfield. Well, Brad, last week was just a good old-fashioned grinded-out football game for your team. And you had talked about going into that game that it was going to be that physical battle on the line and that you'd have to win all of that. I think it's fair to say your team won those battles all throughout the night, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly tight. It was indicative of what the score was. It was a slugfest, kind of the way you visualize having to win a lot of games in the playoffs at this point. Everybody's good. Everybody's physical. Everybody expects to win. You're just not going to boat race people. You know, those teams that were able to do that, they've long been home, and they're getting ready for next year.
What was the most impressive to you with what your team was able to do? Was it how they were able to hold on to the ball for the length of time that they did on every drive?
Yeah, I think that, and I think defensively we didn't allow them to get any momentum. You know, we certainly held the ball a lot, but we forced them to be 3 and out as well. You know, they get as many possessions as we get. They certainly have the opportunity for it. I was happy, that we did take care of the football. I think the fourth down conversions, the third down conversions. I mean, how many times at the end of the game? You know, you started the game on an 8-minute drive and you ended the game on an 8-minute drive. So I think those two things right there are incredibly impressive. And holding on to the ball during those drives, because again, like I said, they were about 2.5-yard plays a play, so just grinding them away. So I was proud of those two things.
Well, you could tell your game plan was to just continue to pound them with your big guys, Marcellus Parker and Sumo Kesley. Of course, Marcellus pounds them on the first drive. You get points, and then Sumo on his very first carry, he unfortunately fumbles the ball, and it sets up a touchdown for them. Did he put himself in jeopardy? Did he lose any playing time after that fumble, or was it just that Marcellus was running so well that instead of alternating with, every possession, he just went with what was working?
Yeah, I think you get into a rhythm. No, we're not going to punish him. I mean, Sumo wants to win and wants to, he wasn't fumbling out of lack of caring or anything like that. I mean, he's a great kid and committed a ton to the program. And so, no, that's just part of football. No, it was more that Marcellus was in a rhythm, but one guy can't carry the mail. I mean, you got to have multiple guys do it. So honestly, Sumo was the finisher for us. And that if Marcellus had that 8-minute drive at the beginning of the game, Sumo had the 8-minute drive at the end of the game. So it was good sharing of the load, and they're both really healthy, which you worry about at after taking a punishment like that. You worry about that. So I think letting them be able to carry the load has enabled them to kind of have even more juice going forward.
I think there are many coaches that look and are very jealous that you have two guys like that you can use in those situations, because look, from here on out, whether it's having a drive that lasts 6 or 7 minutes or whether it's just picking up the 2 yards on a 4th down, both of those guys are guys that fit that bill.
Yeah, and the offensive line in front of them has a lot of trust in them, and they have a lot of trust in the offensive line. Niall, even though he didn't really carry the ball, he still can do the same things. He's a different type back. He's a little more shifty, but there's going to be a time we need that kind of element as well. It wasn't last game, but, what the next game is going to come, you just can't tell what that narrative is going to look like.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Niall Johnson, because to me, this is just the epitome of team and the kind of culture that you have with your team. The week before, he goes 92 yards, has a touchdown. If you look throughout the year, he's been around 100 yards every game. He's been a big feature back for you, and he didn't really get called on at all in that game. But you win the game, and it's all about team. It's all about, if you have to sacrifice today for the end result, that's great. Maybe the next time you're going to get the guy that's going to start in that game.
And it's probably better because we really needed him on defense. We needed him to be fresh on defense because, he's going to run with their receivers, and that's what we needed from him. Yeah, we talked a lot about it. It just was that game where we needed the biggest guys out there that were able to carry the ball. Sometimes we need more speed on the field. You don't know how games are going to develop. Niall and Richard is another one, Richard Kenny, because it was the exact same thing. Didn't carry it a ton, but when he got called on, he made a huge play in the game on the Jets or on the Rocket sweep when he cut it back in, got a huge first down that set up the touchdown. So, so both those guys, but they were called on huge on defense. So, all you want to do is try to win the game at this point. There's no stats don't matter, fanfare doesn't matter. You're just trying to win the game so you have more time to be a team.
Well, and this week it steps up another level, not just because you want to continue on in the playoffs, not just because you want to win a region, but because you're facing DeSales for a 3rd time. And they beat you 2 times this year. But when you look at the combined overall score, 5 points separates the 2 teams. First of all, what do you think about the opportunity to play a team 3 times in 1 year?
It's unprecedented. It's the first time in Ohio high school history that teams have played 3 times this season, and to have it be such an intense rival. We played them, 8 times, I think, since 14. And we've won 4 of them. Stallions won 4 of them. And if you add up all the points, it's a 1-point game. So that's ridiculous. It shows how fiercely competitive these 2 teams are. When there's 21 regional championships between the 2 schools. There's 7 state championships, a lot of state championship appearances. I mean, these are blue bloods in Ohio high school history, and it's exciting to be able to play. Obviously, you had the rivalry part. I mean, I walked into my English class Monday, and they said, "Mr. Birchfield, are we going to win? We've lost to him twice." And I know that we lost to him twice. I was there both times, the whole games. And we're going to try our best to get them. There's no question of that. But that's the kind of reminder that we have all the time. Our people aren't going to let us be okay with, "Oh, you're trying hard."
All right, let me just take 2 different looks at this. Offensively, and you go back to those 2 games, there were times that you had trouble running the ball to the outside and being able to turn the corner. So for your offense, how big of a part of the game is that going to be?
It's big everywhere. We didn't have a great game running the ball on the inside either. I mean, they're really, really good. And unless some of their players don't show up, we expect them to be very good again. So the only way that we can combat that is to be better. And we've worked very hard. We've worked hard to get better. I know they have too. So that doesn't sound like, it's any kind of consolation. But the only answer in a game like this is to do better than they do. That's the only answer. Hand placement, drive, feet placement, all those kind of things that are going to be able to win the game. And it's going to be a battle, and we've got to be better.
And defensively, if you look at both the losses, it was the same thing. Jonathan Thompson, you didn't tackle him. He was able to get big yardage on his carries. You handled Quintel Quinn, their number 1 guy, pretty well. But Jonathan Thompson is a guy that burned you both times. Can you find a way to tackle this guy this time around?
Well, we're going to try to. I promise. We're going to try our best to tackle him, and we were trying our best then too. It's interesting. So when we went back and broke down everything from this, we wanted to see, are they giving these kids equal carries, and they're not giving them equal carries. There's no question. Quinn is carrying the ball a lot more. I mean, the last 2 weeks he's carried the ball twice as much as Thompson. But Thompson, like you said, has been. I mean, he's a great player. They're both tremendous players, strong, physical kids. Can bounce it out and can put their foot in the ground and cut it back. There's no question we've got to tackle them. We've got to do a great job of that. We've got to do better. We've got to do more consistent, because there's certainly been opportunities where we've tackled them and we've done it. We've tackled them, but there's been other times where we've fallen down or we've missed and those good guys make them do that, partly because they're good, partly because we need to get better. So that's been the point of emphasis, and we're either going to be good enough or that's how it is, but we're working hard to be good enough.
As a coach, when you have, like you said, Quinn has carried the ball twice as much, but if you're a coach and you're going into a game against an opponent that has had trouble with one certain guy, would you be inclined maybe to utilize that guy a little bit more?
Well, if I beat somebody twice, I would do what I did the 2 times where I beat them. I would do, and that's what. And it's interesting because they've had 2 different games both times. The first game they played the sophomore quarterback in, and the option was just a pain in the rear end. And then the last time they were certainly much more of a power team. And and they've kind of evolved into much more of a gap team. They have a new guy playing their kind of fullback guy, and he's made them a lot better. There's no question. This kid he's added a lot to them. The backs are great, but they've got a really good blocker in there who just does a great job. So those kind of things are you don't know what to expect, but they've I'd like them to try a different game plan.
Yeah. Well, this is a game that I wish that the entire stadium could be full, because I think the energy would be electric. But then again, I know it's going to be electric down on the field just with the rivalry between these two teams. Brad, thank you so much, and best of luck against DeSales this week.
Thanks, Bob.
So as I just talked about with Coach Birchfield, I think that there are 2 guys that the Hawks have to control if they want to win this game, and it's simply the running backs, Quintel Quinn and Jonathan Thompson. Now, Quintel Quinn, what a game he had last week. He's coming off 22 carries for 179 yards and 3 touchdowns against Jonathan Alder. So he's the star back there, make no mistake. But the Hawks have handled him well this year. Thompson is the guy that has given them fits. And listen to his numbers from last week. He had 126 yards on 10 carries. Now, what does that tell you? Do the math. He averaged 12.5 yards per carry. This guy is dangerous. I don't know why he's so hard to tackle. I don't know why he's able to pick up 12.5 yards every time he takes the football, but he does it. And that's why the defense is really going to be challenged this week. Also, I'm very much looking forward to some of those smaller speed guys getting back into the mix this week. As we were talking about, last week was Marcellus Parker, Sumo Kesley. You knew that. Absolutely, they needed to get the job done with those guys, and they did. Niall Johnson this week, how does he get back in on the offensive side of the football? Trey Saunders, that was about as quiet as he has been all year offensively, what we saw last week against Sheridan. And Richard Kenny, as Coach Burchfield said, he had a couple of plays. He's used to having a couple of more plays in these games. And don't forget, if you go back to the first 2 matchups between these teams, Peyton Underwood was really good at finding Richard Kenny and or Trey Saunders with passes for scores. So maybe that will factor into the playbook this week as well. All I know is it is going to be tremendous. There's no way you can put these 2 schools head to head with so much on the line and not have it be a tremendous game, and then have it end the trilogy for the year. Amazing. I am really, really looking forward to calling this game. The game is going to be at 7 o'clock on Friday night. The Hawks, for the first time in the playoffs, are going on the road. They have to go across town and play at DeSales for this one. 7 o'clock kickoff on Friday. Here is our broadcast lineup once again. The game can be heard live. We will have a live radio broadcast at GameDayBroadcasting.com. That will be live for you at 7 o'clock. As far as the video goes, the OHSAA has a pay-per-view option through Spectrum, and actually we'll be doing that broadcast. So if you go that route and you do the pay-per-view to watch it live, it will be our broadcast. Otherwise, when the game is over, we will post that video broadcast to the Bishop Hartley YouTube channel right here, and you'll be able to go back and watch it. And what we in the business call a tape delay mode, okay, even though there's no tape involved anymore. So keep that in mind. 7 o'clock, we are live at GameDayBroadcasting.com with a radio broadcast. OHSAA pay-per-view option will be live, or you can wait until after the game right here on the Hawks YouTube channel. We will post the video, and you can watch it tape delay. All right, you've got all the information. The excitement begins. Hartley, DeSales, Part 3 for the regional championship and a chance to go to the state semifinals. Thanks for watching Hartley Football Game Day. It's been brought to you by Hutta and Price Orthodontics, and I'm Bob McElligott.